Hey, welcome back, Prosperity Collabs. My name's Chris Mueller. And on this week's interview, we have got a phenomenal agent from Temecula, California. If you are not familiar with Liz Jones, she is one of the premier agents in the Temecula Valley with a heavy emphasis on serving luxury clients. But what you're going to find out through the course of the interview is it's not about the price point. It's about serving people at the highest level. You're going to hear the power of being involved in your community and leveraging that involvement to really be able to serve at an incredibly high level. So it's a great, great conversation. We're going to touch on some of the changes happening in the industry as well, but get your pencil out, get ready to take some notes because Liz Jones is a powerhouse and she's going to share with you just how she built that incredible business. Can't wait for you to hear this one. Liz Jones, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Well, Liz, I appreciate your patience. I am a full disclosure guy. So this is our second try at this. We got deep into a great conversation, and then I looked down and I realized that Liz's mic wasn't turned on, which if you're a fan of the podcast, you know has happened to me before. I did not want it to happen again. So we're going to jump back in. Liz, give me some background. Great real estate agents aren't born, is my opinion. Everybody's got to learn how to do this.
Oh, I totally had to learn how to do this.
Right. And I have found very few people who came into the real estate was their first thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you end up doing this?
So I was in marketing and in transition and then started to study real estate investing. And through real estate investing, some really creative deals. And through the study of real estate investing, I ended up thinking it's smart to have my license. I can pick up a couple $1,000s more. And I did. Mm-hmm. Then I started shopping, understanding fully well that once I have my license, I now have to figure out where I hang it. I was like, hang it? What do you mean? So I started to ask around, who should I study under, mentor under? And I had some wonderful people that came forward. I had a gentleman by the name of Ron Baum, who is the pastor over at one of our churches, believe it or not, and probably does a heck of a lot of deals. He was welcoming me to try to do something with him. And I thought, oh, that'd be great. But it was a format that did not have any formal training. Mm-hmm. It was an Allison James kind of thing. And I felt like that was going to be difficult for me to catch up to speed. I'd have to be bugging him. And he's a very busy guy. Mm-hmm. So I thought that might not work. Then there was, Century 21 was where I was trained. And I just naturally thought I'd go over to Century 21. And I found it didn't fit my vibe. Mm-hmm. So I didn't go there. I had a wonderful seasoned agent say, I need somebody who's technology savvy. I'm not that guy. I'm relationship savvy. Mm-hmm. And it would be great to partner with you. And I thought, it's great, but I really think I need something deep. And so I ended up coming over here to Keller Williams. Okay. And then I met your office staff and the team leader at the time, Brian. And I just felt like it was a good fit, a home fit. And I just had the vibe. So I stayed here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very cool. I think it's really easy as real estate agents to discount the importance of the culture around you and the support. And I've heard agents who, when I talk to them about support, they'll say, well, my broker's there if I ever have a question. And that's great. But that's different than a culture that is, we're continually trying to help you grow. We're continually pouring into you. And so I'm really glad that you found that here. That's, it's definitely worked.
You got, I think agents, the biggest, change that I see in agents, and I talk to a lot of them, is they say, have you checked out so-and-so? Have you gone so-and-so? And I give it all a very fair shot. I mean, we all get solicited, right? And so I will fairly look at the data and assess whether or not it makes sense. But at the end of the day, we take us with us. So if your patterns are good here, they're going to be the exact same patterns. It just might be a different office space, or you might have a different tribe you hang out with. Right. But then you have to change over a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And that's disruptive to a business. And I think that young agents probably have the biggest wake-up call of all, is as they get rolling, it takes them months to get rolling. sometimes a year to get
Yeah.
rolling. And then they make a change because they say nothing's happening here. But it's not the organization, it's the patterns.
Right.
And so as soon as we can figure that out and get past our own head, get past our own patterns, we usually get rhythm, and that's when you stay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as coming from a business background, you had this advantage because you came in and really approached it as a business.
It has to be.
And
right.
we've talked about lead generation before in the past. And I remember saying, well, we're talking about, I just need to spend more time having conversations,
Yeah,
right?
that's it. It's numbers.
It is. And so did you start that way? I mean, was it a real clear, you came into Keller Williams, we've got systems and models, all
Right.
of that. I mean, tell me about your adoption
I started
there.
the silly way that I came out of. So my prior business was marketing and advertising.
Okay.
And picture 2013, where the internet is really just picking up some steam.
Mm-hmm.
And print was still around, but it wasn't like, it was losing some creativity. And it could be me, it could be you. Sorry.
That's okay.
So with that, I poured, I think I threw $80,000 into my first year of marketing and advertising because I was a big proponent of it.
Yeah.
Didn't get me anywhere. To be honest with you, it didn't get me anywhere. So the second year, I spent money into a level 1 kind of coach. And we realized quickly it was my patterns. We realized quickly it was my measurement tools. It was my mindset. One of my first real solid listings came from a family member that was quite generous of them. It was a $3.2 million house.
Yeah.
And I had a real problem taking the commission. I really did. So I started doing crazy things to deserve that commission. I had, brokers open with valet parking, and I just brought in every bell and whistle I could to feel like I justified that very simple offer that came in because I'm on the beach, right?
Right.
So it was a mindset change that had to be made.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of work to be done. And I suspect most young agents, unless they're untainted, in some way, they're feeling the same way.
We run to pleasure. We run away from pain.
Yeah.
And I think marketing has value, right? It has a ton of value, but it's a low risk in that no one gets to say no to me. No one gets to reject me, right? Whereas prospecting and relationship, I've got pride on the line, and I'm going to fight harder than anything to protect my pride, right? That's core. And it's a big leap for people, and this is, agents will say, well, I don't have enough money to get started. Or I have to do, man, I can't tell you how many young agents I wanted to shake. Cause I'm just like, call people who know you. Well, I've got, call people who know you.
Yeah.
And just say hi.
Yeah.
Right. $80,000 is an education.
That was silly. Yeah. Well, those fun magazines that you take out a full page ad, I took, they're still 1,300 back then. So you got those 12 times. I mean, I just kept mailing and spending time and it wasn't until I got systems in place that I started getting momentum.
Yeah. Now, how much different are your systems today?
They're more refined.
Okay.
They're more refined.
Okay.
So I then, once I did a level 1 coach and felt like I learned everything I needed to learn, I jumped into a level 2, which is Buffini, and then what's the other one? That he's out there. Anyway, so I did that, and I felt like I graduated from their knowledge, and then I jumped into Core, which is an East Coast company that really really hammered in at very high risk, a lot of fees if you don't make deadlines, a lot of paying people out. So there was a lot of accountability, and that accountability and hanging out with people who do business at a much higher level than myself really brought into view what I can do if I put my mind to it.
Yeah.
And then it was really about, do I have the bodies, and do I have the time, and do I have the structure, the accountability and the systems, and then finding the right people.
Right. Yeah. This is something I hear from top producer over and over again, is putting themselves in a situation where they're around people who are doing what they want to do. Right. And I think that is, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly.
Right. And if you don't have those people, find them. And again,
Right.
and the office makes a difference. If you're in an office where they have you, those people are accessible, that's
Yes.
huge. I remember I was in offices where the top producers were like the gods of Olympus. It was like, stay out of their way, right?
Wow.
You know, it's so hard to grow in that situation.
It is.
But in an office, you know, with top producers around like you are, it's like, it's a hack, right?
It's just as powerful for me to come around my team than it is for them to see the energy that I bring.
Mm-hmm.
And it's necessary. Although I love the idea of working from home, I think I would become stale very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I would become lazy very, very quickly. I need the accountability of a person waiting to get their paycheck on next week. It just feels like I owe them something, and they bring their energy to me, and we work as a team, and it's a raw for everybody.
Yeah. Well, again, that's a business owner mindset too, right?
Yeah.
And in a way, it's seeing your business having a mission that's bigger than your own personal gratification, right? I'm not just going out and making money for myself, my hobbies. I'm supporting other families.
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
I'm contributing at a much higher level, right?
Huge.
So, Liz, I've always associated you with luxury.
Okay.
And I remember this one point I in our previous run through this, I mentioned that I came to know you through your postcards, right? But I would go research your business and I'd be like, dang, she does not sell anything under $1 million. Every time I turn around, it was like 1.2 or 2.5 and you have that niche, right?
I can, yes. I feel like I connect with those people. I know the business. I know that area, and I have business connections that get me there.
Okay, that is aspirational to a lot of people. But when we were talking a little bit earlier on a previous run at the podcast, you mentioned that being a luxury agent doesn't mean you just do luxury.
No.
Give me some insight into that.
So if I were comfortable just selling my 15, 20 luxury homes a year, I probably make a nice living. There's a lot of agents I know that will not deviate from that. They work completely out of their car. They have every one of their luxury brochures sitting in the back seat, and they'll whip it out, and they just specialize. And I think that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't stop there. I think I felt like I wasn't doing enough.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's an insight into my thinking, but there was a lot of people with other problems, and I was good at solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I have declined a few lately because we're just really busy.
Sure.
And, but I will always put them in touch with somebody I believe can solve their problem that is not as busy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they find me, I find them.
Yeah. I mean, the market, we're in a very challenging place in the market. And you and I have talked about this, outside of podcast conversations, that there are a lot of people, I think, who want to move, who need to move. Yeah. But in a sense, they're hostage to their rate.
Yeah. Well, many things are hostage to.
Oh, yeah.
I wish it were just the rate.
Yeah. Well, give me some insight into that. What do you mean?
So we are, I've got one such person I've met. There's such a deep desire to live her dreams of her childhood, to move to another place that's more affordable, to be ridden of the noose around her neck, which is the house. Mm-hmm. And she can't let her stuff get out of her way. She's I wouldn't want to say a hoarder, but she's a collector. Mm-hmm. And that immobile behavior can't let her get out of her way. And I don't think it has a lot to do with the rates. I think it's, in our case, it's a situation. Or I have another family that doesn't have the money to move. They have to have a deposit that goes into a rental in another state. They don't have it. Yeah. They don't have the money to do an inspection on this house, but they have equity in their home, right? I've got another person who wants to find a smart business decision for a 1031 exchange over on the beach, but they can't be too picky because they're 70 years old and they really want to enjoy that home too. So if it doesn't fill the need to be an Airbnb or a short-term rental, they're okay with that. But can you help us find one anyway?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of challenges that people are facing every day. And we've gotten really good at trying to solve the puzzle, right? So that's what we do. But yeah, people are stuck because of interest rates too.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's what you're touching on is there's a whole lot more to selling real estate at a high level than sign the paper and put the sign in the ground. Right. And I think, you know, we've been in the media a lot lately. We've got these national commission lawsuits, and there's been some new regulations in terms of that and everything going on with that. And I think on the one hand, it changes the way we do business. But on the other hand, I think it's a tremendous opportunity for real estate agents to really be clear about the value that they offer. And let's face it, there are some agents out there who haven't been offering a ton of value.
You know, honestly, that is probably the hardest thing in our profession. We've been labeled with car salesmen, right? People themselves think that what we're there to find a house for them, find a house. So if they found the house and we collect the commission, they think they did the work up front and we didn't do anything.
Right.
But what they don't realize is the 30 days of pain or 60 days of pain. I've got one going on 60 days of pain that we suffer along the way.
Right.
And it's no different when you have your attorney, when you're going through a divorce, when you have an attorney that says our minimum fee is $5,000, please, you put a deposit today and we'll send you the bill every single week after we talk. And that is smart business. But what we do as real estate agents is the complete opposite. I hope, I pray you decide to buy this house and let's get to the end of the line. And maybe, just maybe, I'll get paid. And oops, if you screw up the paperwork, you might not get paid anyways.
Right.
So there's just so much that has been built over time with some of our conversations. And so there's so much over time that people have built this up. And now I think there's just some muddiness in the workplace.
Yeah.
That I know will go away.
Right.
But right now there's an ugliness with paperwork that surrounds it. There's an ugliness with, misconceptions. And you're right. It's very hard for real estate agents to articulate their value.
Yeah.
I'm a nurse. I serve you at your bedside. I have a value. I'm a doctor. I give you good health advice. I write a prescription. I have value. But for your real estate agents, like, you didn't help me find that home. I found it online.
Right.
So we have to get good at identifying what that value is and being able to do it in a second while someone shops 5 other people.
Yeah.
Right. And, or at an open house.
Yeah. There's a part of me that's a little bit excited about the changing environment, particularly in buyer's agents, because in California, we had a buyer agency agreement that no one used.
No one.
And so as a buyer's agent, I could show you 30 homes.
Right.
And then you call the sign of the 31st home. And I just spent, how many miles of gas, how much time away from my family, how much heartache, all that. How many offers have I written? And I get paid nada. Where now we're entering into a contractual relationship that you've engaged my services to not just find the house, but to get you through that escrow. And really, as an agent, my value isn't I'm a house finder. My value is I'm your fiduciary to your dreams, to your family's legacy.
And that really is a huge importance.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many monetary decisions to make along the way. From the second you choose your lender, if your agent is not involved, I've got one right now that just is not looking good, and we are 15 days past escrow, close of escrow. And because they chose poorly, it's going to impact everyone, everyone.
Yeah.
So, I think that's where our value comes in, is that we have resources that are tried and true. That's a good starting point to get to build a relationship with someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Liz, one of the things that I think is amazing about your business is the high level of community involvement. Recently you were nominated for the Small Business of the Year by the Murrieta and Wildomar Chamber of Commerce. My understanding is the Liz Jones team is the only real estate team to have been nominated for that.
We're blessed.
What why? Why are you so involved in the community? I mean, I don't think it's marketing. You know what I mean?
No, it is. I was always trained to network.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like these other business owners it's a reflection of who I am, I think. So I get some community there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to hang out with real estate agents all day long, right? But in essence, if I could hang out with the guy who's doing carpet or the guy who's running the city or, the mayor, why not?
Mm-hmm.
And I love giving to those organizations. I feel like I have a pulse on every nonprofit in this Inland Valley, and I want a piece of that. I want to be part of that. I want some of that energy. I learned that I had the energy to give into one of the two chambers. There are two wonderful chambers here, Temecula and Murrieta, and I found myself gravitating towards Murrieta,
Mm-hmm.
and that opened up doors to so many other opportunities too. So, it's part of who I am. I'm a volunteer crazy. I was Volunteer of the Year last year with the Murrieta Chamber and nominated for Citizen of the Year. So it's just part of who I am. And if I just had to do transactions all day, I think that I would feel empty.
Yeah. Well, this is something I try to stress to agents. There's two ways to do this business in my mind. I mean, there's probably 1,000 ways, but the two that I see are build a rich network of connection, right? Which really, it makes your community smaller. You have a really positive impact on the place where you live. And, when you have that, you go to the supermarket and everybody's a friend, or that's kind of the way you spend your day. And we say, be the mayor of your town, right? Without being the mayor of the town.
Right.
Or you can spend your life essentially cold calling faceless online leads.
Yeah.
And that's, how do you want to spend your life, right?
Yeah, I know plenty of agents that do it well.
Yeah.
They do that. They knock it out of the park. But they feel comfortable there, right? They may not feel so comfortable going to a chamber at, 10 o'clock or in the morning or 7:30 in the morning or whatever they do.
Yeah.
To me, I thrive in that.
Yeah.
There's people that I want to see and they want to see me, and I want to support them in whatever they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I think this comes from, and you and I have talked about this outside the podcast. This isn't just about money to you. You've got a bigger mission. I mean, your faith plays a big role in your why and what you're doing. How, I think we live in a culture where we're telling people, oh, no, everything you do has to either be secular or spiritual. It can't intertwine. And I think that's nuts, right? How do you balance faith and business, or is there balance at all? I mean, how do you approach it?
So for many, many years, I hid it, right? And it's because it's politically correct to hide it. And through my letters of the heart, I'm not sure if you got that or my postcard. You probably got my postcard, but the letters of the heart is a monthly newsletter that is very focused on what's going on in my world, in my family life, in my personal life, in my mind. And I believe it's probably one of my best tools for people to get to know me. And so in that letter, over time, I've just, I write it in the morning when I'm still, and there's lots of leadings in there that says, share. So I would over time do it. And for the most part, I got some really great feedback. People said, I feel the same. I felt a nudge. I appreciate you coming out and saying that. And over time, I got more bold and just shared more.
Okay.
And I knew I struck a nerve one day when someone says, unsubscribe me. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that. I just felt like that was important too.
Right.
I struck a nerve. So, I think that we represent our beliefs every day. And I think one of the toughest lines for me to cross daily is when I'm definitely nowhere close, presented with major challenges and major angry people and trying to be Christ-like. That's probably my hardest thing. And I pray that God works quickly in me. But I can tell you that that's my focus. That's my goal.
Yeah.
And so I try to take it in.
Yeah. It's so hard, I think, to not react. Right. And it's just our nature. Like if I raise my voice, you're going to raise your voice. And all of a sudden we're both screaming at each other.
Right.
And the impulse to step back and to receive someone's frustration or anger or whatever, but to not receive it personally, that's a challenge.
I think sometimes when you do at a high level volume, when you don't have that buffer person we were talking about, you do take a lot of that in every day. So, if you're doing 10 or 12 transactions and you're getting that every single day from a lot of angles, there's a lot of emotions flying. And in that emotion, it's hard to disconnect from it. You take it home with you and you wear it and you pray it off and then you start the day and it starts again. So, honestly, there are solutions. I probably have a need to work on those solutions, but I think that we all know we're a work in progress.
Oh yeah.
So.
Now you mentioned you write your letters of the heart in the morning, in your
I
quiet time, your still time. I mean, I would say that's your prayer time, right?
Yep.
So how important is that? We talk about personal development, right? We talk about self-care. We talk about all those things. Your morning prayer time is part of that for you. What is that? Is that it? I mean, what are you doing to make sure that you're coming into the day with energy?
Oh, yeah.
How do you rank those practices?
Well, I work out first thing in the morning. I'm a 5 a.m. girl for workout, and I do Pilates every day. And then I sit down and I have my coffee, and I always have my my chapter that I read every single day. I lead a discipleship group on Monday nights with 2 young women that are hungry to learn, and so that's wonderful. Part of Student Venture, so I get to teach some kids. But it is really about just filling up.
Yeah.
I listen to worship in the car. Sunday is just, it's my let's throw it all up and hope he takes care of it kind of time. And it's my good cry out, so that's how I survive the week.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think it's funny you mentioned worship, and Eric Tomlinson and I talked about this a little bit too, listening to worship in the car and things.
Yeah.
And there's something about acknowledging my smallness.
Oh gosh, yeah.
All of the problems of the world, they are too big for me. I'm not the one who's going to handle them. My shoulders weren't meant to carry them.
No.
Right. And so then I turn to someone bigger than me. And if you don't have that, man, the weight of everything can be just crushing.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
It's crushing.
And I talk about my experience with my son going through his cancer treatment. But man, if we didn't have bigger shoulders, what would we have done? I just can't imagine, and in our industry, it's the weight of a family's legacy that I'm carrying on my shoulders for this brief period of very intense time. My shoulders weren't meant to carry that,
No.
Yeah.
No, I went through about 3 weeks that I kind of let go of everything. It was a full surrender, and I felt the difference in who I was and how I stressed and and it's amazing. You just felt like, okay, I get it, Lord. I feel that spirit, and I get you're going to take care of today, whatever that looks like. It was a beautiful feeling. And of course, with everything, you kind of get back into your rhythms and your bad habits and things like that. But it was a complete difference.
Yeah.
And so that's my goal, to strive to get back there.
Yeah.
And obviously you got to renew every moment, but.
Yeah. Paul in Philippians 4, and this is my foundational verse, I think. It's just become, and part of it was traveling through cancer with my, then 4-year-old, right? He's now 9. But Paul talks about, making your anxieties known to the Lord, right? Just letting him have it, right? And then you'll have a peace that surpasses all understanding. And then the verse goes on to basically say, if there's anything at all in the world good, focus on these things. Right. And I feel like it's become so foundational to who I am, who our family is, but that's your recipe. So when everything is just flying, that you can stop and go, yeah, but hey, did you get this? that person, I made that person laugh, or, we're going to get done. All right. You focus on those good things, and what you see is the little miracles along the way.
Yeah.
Right.
And
we need them.
We definitely need them. And
Yeah.
I don't know how an individual survives. I mean, in all fairness, I'm seeing all industries stressing. I see how hard it is for my daughter in nursing, and I've talked to somebody else that was law enforcement yesterday. I get it. I talked to a 90-year-old man who's an MD doing psychology, and my question to him is, how do you listen to people's hurt all day and not have it affect you? And he goes, quite honestly, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
And so it's all industries, but how do you survive that if you don't have a higher power to turn to refresh, to basically wash you from all this crud?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they get through, because that's the only thing keeping me alive.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know it's definitely been where I've gone, and I have to. And, it's interesting because science and all of the great discoveries we have, a daily practice of gratitude has such profound effects on the person. Why? Because we were designed to know that we're small, right?
Yeah.
There's something bigger, and that we have to be grateful. And even if you don't know who you're thanking,
right,
it helps to just be grateful.
Right. Well, it also rewires your brain, if nothing else. I mean, when I'm in a loop of bad transactions, guess what I'm thinking about all day long is bad transactions, right? So breaking that up with what is different, what is new, whether or not it's a fresh face in my team, or a win for one of them, getting a new lead that's going to turn into something. That's a win. That changes my thinking. Yeah. And I need that. Yeah. I need that.
Yep. Okay. Pilates. I'm curious. Do you do the Pilates at home? Do you go to a studio?
No, I go to a studio, 5:30 a.m. Club Pilates is where I go. They have them a couple places in the local area. And picture doing great muscle development on your back for the most part.
Yeah.
So you can close your eyes and just do muscle development, and you're feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah. My wife's birthday is coming up, and I was thinking about, because she's always been Pilates curious.
Oh.
She's a former gymnast, and so I was like, this I've got to get more information about.
It's basically a torture bed, and we are just having fun stretching muscles where they don't want to go.
Yeah.
And then using balls and rings and little tiny balls and pull down bars and things like that, just to get our muscles doing things they normally don't do.
Yeah.
And so, it's helped me a lot. It took me back from where I was hurting.
Looks like another level of torture.
Yes, it is.
It really does. All right, Liz. Well, you are not. You're not a solo agent. You're leading a team.
That's correct.
How did you know it was time to take that leap? I mean, how long
Drowning.
have you had it? Yeah. Okay. Tell me about that.
So one of the things I noticed is that when you get to about 15, 16 transaction, you're starting to feel a little overwhelmed. Especially if you're trying to service more than one in the same month.
Yeah.
And then as you approach 20, you're at a point where you're really curious if you could, but you're afraid to let go. You're afraid to let go of income because you see this stream of income coming and it frightens you. And you're like, could I? Should I? And most people tend to jump into a buyer's agent because they think that's the way to go, but it's probably the worst way to go. And I learned that the hard way. And because now you're training somebody else, otherwise they could have done it themselves. And you're spending all your energy there. It's going to take them 4 to 6 months to get trained. And then you lost production because you lost your patterns. Yeah. Because now you're trying to train somebody to do their patterns and they're not living up to it. And then you get frustrated and then that dies. So your best first hire is an assistant. And, some people hire, out of the country people, some people hire a TC, some people hire just a person in the office. Every bit of it is worthwhile. Yeah. So they're the people that you train to understand your business. You share with them every bit of who you are. Yeah. And as they grow in their abilities, you grow in what you can do.
Yeah. Well, the business consultant heart in my soul just swelled up because it's so true. The buyer's agent, you end up putting yourself in a position where now it's my job to go find leads for this person who more often than not doesn't know how to convert them.
No.
And now I'm just giving away income
that I could have had.
Oh, yeah.
But you also, in many cases, if you were up at that volume, you couldn't even take on those leads because you didn't know how to manage them yourself. You're too young in that. And lead management. I could tell you my first couple of years, I probably let 40 leads slip by me, and I would call them a couple months later. I bought. And that would frustrate the living bejesus out of me because I didn't have a system to capture leads and to call them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing I love that you said, to get that first admin, right? Because this is a multiplier. Mm-hmm. This is someone who now takes away the 80% of things that suck your life out and don't really produce business, but have to get done. Right. It's leverage. Yep. The other thing is it begins to be a nucleus of culture. Yes. Right. What is the Liz Jones team? Well, it's me and my admin, right? There's some stability there, and now we can build into culture, right? Mm-hmm. So you got your first admin. You mentioned some failures. Yeah. Right?
Oh,
with the buyer's agent.
Many of them. Yeah. I've had a couple successful ones, and they move out of state, and that was no good. Yeah. So you're always training your competition. Okay. And you have to go in with that mindset. Yeah. That you may lose them one day. Right. I remember a very large team in town that trained an incredibly awesome agent, and she was producing 60 transactions a year on her own with their help with lead generation, probably through Zillow. And bad blood happened, and she left. And I know that impacted them. Mm-hmm. And for a while, she didn't have the confidence, even at 50, 60 transactions, because she didn't know where her leads were going to come from anymore. She was fed them and she converted them. And it took a while for her to get the mindset that she could do this on her own. Yeah. But it does interrupt patterns for everybody.
Yeah. So I've seen people go down the road of team, mm-hmm. and they make that first hire, mm-hmm. buyer's agent more often than not, mm-hmm. which they shouldn't, or admin, mm-hmm. and they have that failure. Mm-hmm. Because leadership is a different skill set, right? And being a top producing real estate agent doesn't mean you develop that skill set. Right. You mentioned you had some failures in the beginning. More often than not, people go, well, if I tried that, it didn't work. Right? I'm just going to be a solo agent. It's easier to do it this way, right? Why didn't you?
Why didn't I go back to it, or
why did you keep trying the team thing?
So one of the things, the coaching values that I found guided me towards two models. One is the team model where you add a lot of buyer's agents, mm-hmm. and the other was towards an admin team. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I needed an admin team mm-hmm. for me. Now, I've recently added buyer's agents because I feel like the admin team is well-oiled machine. Mm-hmm. And I felt that I have knowledge to share with people who want to learn it. Mm-hmm. And so that's usually how I pick up a buyer's agent. Can I come on your team? Yeah. And so I evaluate, do I have time to give mm-hmm. and energy to give? Mm-hmm. And, do they have what I believe will be the staying power for themselves for mm-hmm. at least 6 months? I mean, if they leave after 6 months, that's their prerogative, mm-hmm. but mm-hmm. they won't learn everything I have to give them until they're there 6 months. Right. And so with the kind of model that I chose, I felt like there was a model where I could accomplish more if I had bodies and leverage to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I lived that model for the last several years. Okay. And so when I had a really wonderful group of agents before, we were rolling. We were really, really happy with that. And again, I lost them to moving out of the state. Mm-hmm. So it had to put me in flux again. Yeah. So I had one go off one direction, one go off the other direction. And now I'm down to just my admin team.
Yeah. I've heard Pat Lencioni say, people will say to him, what happens if I train these people and they leave? And Pat always responds, what happens if you don't and they stay? Right. Right. And, there's a part of when you commit to leadership, acknowledging that I'm here to help people develop. Right. I want them to become everything that they can be. Right. Right. And if that's not why I'm in leadership, then I'm not leading. I'm taking advantage of. Right.
Well, going down that route, our training at CORE taught us that people stay because they're treated right. Mm-hmm. They feel a connection and a community. and they feel that there's still room to grow in that organization.
Yeah.
When I see an agent that is drowning, it's usually because they haven't built their tribe yet.
Right.
And once they build their tribe, it's really about, do they get the patterns that we should develop? Are they willing to take the steps necessary? And do they have staying power for the time it takes to get that into play?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it, usually.
Yeah. So fair to say your model is really built on giving you personally the most leverage possible.
Yeah. It totally is.
At this point, buyer's agents come in, and that's less of a revenue producing opportunity as it is an opportunity to hand on and mentor.
Yeah, very little revenue driven where I am right now with it. So it's predominantly me.
Yeah. But it's your opportunity to kind of give back.
Oh, that's the complete reason why I do it.
Right. Yeah, totally. Very cool.
Not about the money.
So tell me about the structure. I think this is some really, I see you manage your team. I'll come in the office and you're meeting with them. I think for a lot of people getting into teams, it takes them a while to realize that communication is not incidental. Communication has to be intentional.
Yes.
And so tell me about the flow of your team.
Sure.
How are you doing this?
Sure.
Yeah.
So when we first aligned, we try to meet daily. I have a couple of people that love to work from home, or they have some conflicts, but we have a wonderful chat system. We use Slack. And so we're constantly communicating all day long. And we have an offsite TC, and she operates with us too. And we always loop her in. So we have an update call usually on Tuesdays, and that's just before I update all my clients. And then Brendan, who serves as pretty much a listing coordinator and everything else, he has a pulse on everything as I do. So we're constantly talking. And when our team has a new lead, we celebrate that. We have some team contests when you're pulling in leads. So we try very hard. We go out to have some fun, that kind of culture, and we meet and we talk. And that's primarily it. And we all have the same tools that we're using for accountability.
Okay. So there's a daily touch base. And then you have the Slack channel open throughout. Brendan is serving as your sort of director of operations, let's call him.
For the time being, yes.
So it's not, so he knows what you need to know.
Correct.
Right.
He and I are always, we're constant flow of information.
Okay. And then is there like and then you're doing social things outside of that, with what kind of frequency? I mean, is that every week? Is it once a month?
I'd say once a quarter. We're doing that. When we get into, just hanging out or something like that, it's just, coffee, donuts, meeting or whatever. But when we go out, we have a fun going out.
Is there, so there's the daily touch base. Do you sit down to do a weekly, more of a business meeting at all? Or is it just the daily touch base?
We do when we have a training session. So when the girls are in the office, we'll always have, when I've got the whole team together, we'll always have a meeting, and we're doing some fun cards that who is this new vendor that talks about what to say? I can't remember. I was trained on something. So it's a wonderful deck of cards that throws out scenarios.
Oh, yes.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, and I'm blanking on his name
yeah, me
now,
too.
but he's phenomenal. Phil M. Jones.
Thank you. Yes,
exactly
that's exactly. I love the
yeah.
M.
Yeah.
And so we do training on that. And so we'll have a round of trying to have something, and we'll try to stump each other. So that'll be fun. We talk about each kind of training. So when the BRBC came out, we trained on that. We talk about situational, like, okay, you have a client who's saying this, they want this kind of property. What does that mean if they're getting a VA loan? So we do some training at that level. And then a lot of time it's just an update of where our clients are and how many leads they have and who's warm. So
okay, cool. I love that you guys are role playing the Phil M. Jones cards.
Isn't that fun? It's new to us, but it's a personal thing. I want to get to a point where I can master that. Yeah,
he is. I mean, I heard him speak at Keller Williams family reunion a couple of years ago, or was it Mega Camp? I can't remember, but he was so phenomenal. I put the language into use immediately, and it was like, this works. This just really works.
Yeah, and it disarms too.
Yeah.
That's the main reason. With as many struggles as we have, it'd be great if I can master that and allow people to feel like they're in control.
Yeah. That's really cool. And it's something you touched on there is it's role play.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If I'm coaching in anything else, there's going to be something where you've got to do your reps,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's layups
Right.
or it's just conversation starts.
Right.
And, that's how you learn to do it on the field.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're doing that with your team, and they're learning from you as you're learning from them.
And it's wonderful to hear them roll back. All of a sudden, I told this client, blah, 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 blah. And I love when I hear it because I can see their brains thinking through scenarios, how to help them, creative opportunities. And that's beautiful.
Very cool. All right, Liz, we're coming into about 44 minutes. We're getting to the end of the podcast. What's next for you? I mean, what's the next frontier for Liz Jones?
I will likely find a way one day to put this organization into the hands of someone much younger, more capable, and I will let it have its life into the next generation, and I will spend more time working with the church.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that's something that most real estate agents don't even conceive of, right? That this thing I'm building has a bigger life than me.
Right.
Right. It's a business. It's a firm. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's awesome. Now, is that something you've already began plotting out, or you just?
No, it's at the preliminary. I've always thought that what it will require is to see someone who has an energy for it, a desire for it, somebody, and I feel like God brings exactly who He's going to bring, and
I think that's
it
true.
probably has a leg on it
that
I don't even know.
That's very true. There's somebody he's incubating right now. He's just going to pop their head and raise their hand.
And I'm going to say, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Well, talking about the Valley here, then let's just real quick go back then. And what do you see in the next year for Murrieta, Temecula, for the Valley? What's coming in real estate
it's
in your
exciting.
mind?
So all of this 10,000 units have been put in. Interesting enough, I learned from Ron Holiday in interviewing him that there is actually a state fine because we're not building enough housing for everyone. And it sums up at $10,000 per door per day fine to the city that does not build. So that's why you saw a fast track for all of these units. And it's probably not enough to accomplish, but it's a start. So our internal roadways will probably have to be impacted, obviously with more people moving in, more tax dollar coming in. Also Measure T is another area. I don't know if you know that one. Measure T is what Murrieta has set aside, and I serve on the oversight committee, where they collect 1 penny for every dollar spent, and that penny goes back into the city and has a specific purpose of safety for fire, police, roads, and parks and rec. So all of that goes back into it and allows the city to keep going when they wouldn't get enough from the state.
Yeah.
So those are going to go back into our roads as we see more dollars spent. We have an extremely active chamber, always seeking out better businesses for the area. They often will go to ICSC, which are those major places where they recruit places like Trader Joe's or Costco. And Costco alone in Murrieta being put in there, I think opening day brought in $3 million of sales to Murrieta, which of course they got the one penny out of that in one day.
Yeah.
So I know people think, oh my gosh, it's getting so built out, but there's a purpose in all of it.
Yeah.
Our cars, and when you like Temecula makes a lot of money off cars, and hotels. The hotels, there's a set aside tax amount that comes in your tax from when you're renting a hotel. It's like a vacationer's tax, and that tax goes directly to the city. So it makes sense for cities to want to fund the programs like the Parks and Rec and the roads and the expansions. And so there's a whole lot going on at the city. We are, especially Murrieta, one of the safest areas. And I learned that Menifee is one of the fastest growing safety areas too. Yeah. So we've got huge impact of people moving into this area.
Yeah. I live in Murrieta, and the sheriff, the police department there does such a fantastic job, and it really is. It's a wonderful place to live. One of the challenges I see to this area is we are so dependent on jobs out of the area.
Yes.
And, that is something, so people say, oh, we're getting so built out. Well, we have to. we have to develop an economic zone.
Yes.
Because you see more and more San Diego is building along
Yes.
the 15 corridor.
Yep.
And that just makes San Diego further and further away,
Yes.
which is going to negatively impact Temecula,
Absolutely.
Murrieta, right? And
Right.
so we have to attract those businesses. So bringing in a Costco is huge.
Yeah.
Right?
And 4 hospitals.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we have Abbott in Temecula, and they are constantly bringing in people in the medical field and the science field with the Innovation Center. They are working constantly on trying to get people to move from the tech area to come down here and establish here. And we've got that Golden Triangle getting ready to be built out. That's going to bring a lot of businesses here too.
Nice. What's the, have they announced a timeline on that one yet?
I know they've broken ground, but I don't know if they've announced who is coming. They're giving a lot of hints, but they've broken ground.
Yeah, that'll be cool. That will bring a lot.
It will.
But yeah, I mean, it is always, it's the way of progress. And I remember coming out to Temecula in 1987. And it was nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, it was the Rancho California development, and that was it.
That's it.
And then when we moved out in 2004, I mean, it was still, I mean, it felt like they rolled up the doors at 7:00, you know? And now you see the development in Old Town Temecula. It's this entertainment district.
Yep.
Old Town Murrieta beginning to develop
Absolutely.
as well.
They've got some exciting things in the You got market nights over there too. First and third, I think it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's really beautiful. And you know, they're not creating any more housing really in Temecula. They're landlocked, right? And you'll talk to the mayor and he'll tell you we're landlocked. So they do the best they can. And their population will probably stay around 112.
Yeah.
And if you go to Murrieta, we've got lots of land to develop, and the neighboring cities too.
Yeah.
We'll go due east. So
now,
I think the growth is here.
You this, because it's a question I've got in my mind. All of the high occupancy housing that you alluded to, how do you think that's going to impact ownership? You know,
I think eventually, if we don't get interest rates and prices of houses down, I don't think it's going to be easy to own a home. And I think you're going to find more people. And I think there's a lot of direction from big business, big corporations trying to put us more into rentals. It is a huge operation. And I don't know. I'm trying to encourage any young person I can. If you think you're within a little stretch, get your foot in the ground. I don't care if you don't like the condo. I don't care if you don't like the mobile. If you get your foot in the door, I promise you it won't be long.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't get in at all.
No, get in and hack that house, put in a unit, help it pay your mortgage, whatever.
That's a great idea for an ADU.
Oh,
absolutely. Another creative that's just going crazy right now.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, if I'm a first-time home buyer, this is my entryway to homeownership. And that might not be open to me in the future.
It definitely is not going to be open to everyone.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. My brother is in Alabama, and we were having a conversation the other day, and he asked me about, do you have entire neighborhoods that are rentals now?
Yes,
so
we do. We do right up in Menifee. They have put in brand new homes for rent.
Yeah.
Big homes.
Yeah. And that's such a new thing. But again, it tells you, this is where I think, you know, for the homeowner or for the person considering homeownership, if Blackwater is saying real estate is a good long-term investment, then go buy your home.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no better way I can think of to build wealth. I mean, I watched my kiddos. I loaned them a little money. They bought a tiny little home and took that profit when they sold that home. That 30 turned into 80. That 80 now has over $200,000 of wealth, and we're talking about a 5-year span.
Oh, yeah.
And the stats show that housing is going to continue to go up. Even if it pulls back one moment in time, it's going to continue to go up.
Always does, yeah.
So it's the best thing.
Yeah, I mean, our home, I put 20 into a home in 2011 and took 400 out.
See?
You know?
I had a VA that came in, active duty, and he came in and put 0 down. And then he moved 2 years later. He was walking away with a $180,000 check.
Yeah.
0 down.
I mean, and that is the reality of it. And I think you hit it on the head. As we see rentals increase, it's not going to make values drop. It's going to make them more exclusive, more dear, right?
Yes,
and they'll cost more and more.
Uh-huh.
Well, Liz, thank you. I mean, this has been phenomenal. I feel like we should just do a series of podcasts where we get together on a regular basis and talk about the Valley, because you are incredibly knowledgeable.
Thank you.
If people want to find you online, where do they find you, Liz?
JonesRealtySoCal.com.
JonesRealtySoCal.com. And any social media where they can find you on?
Yep. I'm on all the major platforms, so you can find me there. And I also have a podcast, and it's City Local.
There you go. I'm excited to hear the podcast. Are we putting episodes out yet?
Yep.
All right. Well, I'll have to subscribe to that on my, and it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that. So is it Liz Jones City Local, or is it just City Local?
No, it's the Tri-City area. So it's, it's Local Living Tri-City area.
Local Living
Tri-City area.
Tri-City area.
Yep.
Find Liz Jones there if you want insights like some of the ones she just gave us here. She dropped like major bombs at the end of the episode. So anyway, Prosperity Collabs, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with another great episode next week. See you guys later.